The rainy glow of Seoul's midnight streets blurred neon into watercolor smears as Detective Leona Hayes crouched behind her car door, watching the entrance of a private club in Cheongdam. She tugged her black leather jacket closer around her shoulders. She wasn't used to Korea's wet winters yet, cold in a way that wasn't just temperature, but a dampness that sank through fabric and bone with equal determination. But she stayed. Her instincts told her something big was going down tonight. Something tied to the case she'd dragged across the Pacific just 2 months ago, a case that involved the most notoriously dangerous family in South Korea, the Moon Syndicate. More specifically, the arrogant youngest son she'd been tracking for weeks, Moon Dae-hyun, 26, spoiled, reckless, and far too confident in his ability to outrun consequences. Every time she closed in, someone cleaned up behind him, evidence erased. Witnesses paid off for suddenly deciding they didn't remember. Leona was good, but tonight had to be better. Her stakeout camera clicked as she zoomed in on the club entrance. A tall figure in a camel coat stepped into the light. Dae-hyun, hair slicked back, sunglasses on despite the lack of sun. He laughed with two men from his crew, flicked a cigarette into a puddle, and disappeared back inside. Leona exhaled. Finally, something she could nail him on. She reached for her radio. A firm, low voice spoke behind her. "You're trailing the wrong moon." Leona froze. Her pulse jumped. She hadn't heard footsteps, hadn't heard a door, hadn't sensed a presence. She carefully reached toward her holster. "Identify yourself." "Detective," he said, calm, unhurried. "If I wanted you dead, your heart would have stopped before you heard my voice." She swallowed. That was not reassuring. She turned slowly. Standing in the rain beneath a flickering street lamp was a man she recognized instantly because everyone in the police department had a file on him 10 inches thick. Moon Hwa-rin, the Dragon of Seoul, 50 years old, leader of the Moon Syndicate. A legend, a ghost, a man spoken of with equal parts fear and awe. His tailored charcoal coat fell to his ankles, untouched by rain. His hair, salt and black, was slicked back with the natural authority of someone born to command. His posture wasn't threatening, but something about him radiated a cold, immovable power. Leona steadied her voice. "You shouldn't sneak up on cops. And you," he said, stepping closer, "should not follow my son." He stopped a few feet from her, close enough that she could see the sharp lines of his face, handsome in a cruel, deliberate way, like a sculpture designed to intimidate more than inspire. But his eyes, dark, discerning, held a strange, quiet intelligence. "You're interfering with matters you don't understand, Detective Hayes." She clenched her jaw. "Your son is tied to 2 extortion cases, an illegal shipment, and a missing witness. I'm going to stop him." The dragon's lips curved. Not a smile, exactly. More like amusement that someone dared speak to him that way. "My son," he said slowly, "is an idiot." Leona blinked. She hadn't expected that. "He thinks power is a toy. He thinks my name protects him from consequences. He thinks, incorrectly, that he is feared." Hwarin's gaze sharpened, sliding down to her badge clipped at her belt. "But you are bold, young, and far too fearless for your own good." "Fearless enough to arrest him," she snapped. The dragon stepped even closer, rain dripping from his lashes. His voice dropped to a quiet, lethal promise. "My son is idiot," he said, "so I will deal with you personally." Leona stiffened. There it was, the threat, except there was something else in his tone, something not cold, not violent, something interested. Her breath hitched, annoyance flaring. "I'm not scared of you." "You should be," he murmured, "but I see your heartbeat hasn't changed rhythm." "Impressive." He tilted his head. "Tell me, why does a 23-year-old American detective chase criminals in a foreign country? Ambition? Glory?" A pause. "Or is it justice?" She lifted her chin. "I don't owe you explanations." He studied her in silence, as though peeling back the layers she tried to hide behind professionalism and stubbornness. The moment stretched, long enough that the rain between them felt louder, colder, sharper. Finally, he said, "My son is reckless, but he is not worth your career or your safety." His gaze dropped briefly to her damp curls clinging to her cheek. So I suggest you stop following him. And if I don't? He stepped close enough that she could see the breath he exhaled in the cold. Then, he murmured, your fight is no longer with the child, but with the dragon. Her heartbeat stumbled. Not with fear, much to her frustration, but with something else. Something warm, intrusive, unwanted, attraction. She hated it instantly. The worst part was, Hua Rin noticed. His gaze flicked down to her lips, lingering an unforgivable second. Detective Hayes. He said her name like a test she'd already failed. You burn too brightly to be chasing shadows like my son. Soul has sharper teeth than you know. I can handle teeth. Can you handle mine? She inhaled sharply. This conversation is over. For now, the dragon said. He stepped back into the shadows, coat swaying with a silent authority. But before he disappeared, he added, you are determined, you are stubborn, and you interest me more than you should. So whatever happens next, know that I will be the one to confront you. Not my son, not my men. His eyes locked with hers. Just me. Then he vanished into the alley as though the night swallowed him, whole. Leona stood frozen in the rain, breath unsteady, heart refusing to calm. This was bad. This was very, very bad. Because she could chase criminals, she could handle danger. But the dragon, he wasn't just danger. He was a storm about to rewrite her entire life. And she wasn't sure if she wanted to run from it or walk straight into its center. Detective Leona Hayes did not sleep that night. She didn't even try. She sat at her small apartment's kitchen table, laptop open, case files spread out in a chaotic arc, the cheap fluorescent light flickering every few minutes like it wanted to give up as badly as she did. She'd handled dangerous criminals before, gangs, traffickers, corrupt officials, but none of them had ever approached her in the dark with that quiet, unshakable confidence. None had ever spoken to her like that. None had ever looked at her like that. Leona shoved the thought away, rubbing her forehead. She needed coffee, not unwanted attraction to a man who could crush her career or her skull with a single command. Right as she pushed her chair back, her phone buzzed. Unknown number? She tensed. The message was short. You left your radio on channel 2, be more careful. Her heart sank and leapt at the same time. The dragon, she hadn't even noticed. Her fingers hovered over the screen, debating whether to respond, block, ignore. A second message arrived. I won't contact you again tonight. Good, don't, she typed back before she could stop herself. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, you challenge me too easily. She locked her phone and tossed it face down, as if that would help. Lord, why does he write like that? She muttered. Like a man who knew she would read every word. Like a man who expected her to react. She didn't want him in her head. And she certainly didn't want him texting her like some brooding villain with perfect grammar. She pulled her laptop closer. Focus. Dae-hyun, the club, the alleged trafficking link she'd been chasing for months. She spent 2 hours dissecting surveillance photos, mapping out connections, checking email leads, and tormenting herself with the memory of those dark, unreadable eyes watching her in the rain. By the time dawn peeked through her window blinds, Leona forced down a bitter coffee and headed into the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency. The investigations floor buzzed with morning energy. Phones ringing, detectives arguing, printers screaming for mercy. Leona walked straight to her senior partner's desk. Sergeant Kang Min-seok raised an eyebrow the second he saw her face. You look like you wrestled with a thunderstorm? Close enough. Got movement on the Moon case, she said. Dae-hyun showed at a Cheongdam club last night. Kang leaned forward. And? And his father showed up. The sergeant went rigid. You made contact with him? Not intentionally. He rubbed his temples. Leona, that man is not someone you run into. If Moon Hwa-rin talked to you, it was calculated. She knew that. Too well. Kang lowered his voice. Did he threaten you? She hesitated. Not exactly, not in the ways she expected, and not in the ways she was prepared to navigate. He warned me off the case, she finally said, but I'm not dropping it. Kang sighed. If the dragon has his eyes on you, this investigation becomes twice as dangerous. Leona's jaw set stubbornly. Then I'll work twice as hard. The sergeant stared at her for a long moment. You're talented, Hayes, but don't mistake adrenaline for invincibility. She opened her mouth to argue, then his desk phone rang, sharp and urgent. Sergeant Kang, he answered. Leona waited. His expression shifted from mild annoyance to outright alarm. He hung up slowly. That was internal affairs, he said. Someone anonymously submitted surveillance footage of you near the club last night. Leona's blood went cold. How? She whispered. Kang shook his head. The file was clean, no traceable signature, but the message attached said, "She is persistent. Handle her with care." Leona didn't need a name. Only one man wrote like that. Kang looked sick. Hayes, I don't know what you stepped into, but you need to be very careful now. If he's monitoring your work, I know. She forced herself to breathe. But that means he's not protecting his son. If anything, he's letting us get close. Kang nodded slowly. Or he's testing you. Great. Exactly what she didn't need. Being part of some mafia boss's personal evaluation. That evening, Leona returned to Cheongdam, determined to finish what she started. She changed into plain clothes. Dark jeans, heavy boots, a long coat that blended with the street crowd. She approached the club's back alley. Camera ready? Someone blocked her path. Her hand flew to her weapon. Relax, the voice said. Too familiar, too smooth. If I disliked you, you would know. The dragon stepped from the shadows as though they belonged to him. A black coat tonight, black gloves, presence undeniable. Leona's pulse betrayed her, quickening despite her efforts. She straightened. You're interfering with police business. And you, he replied with maddening calm, are repeating last night's mistake? She narrowed her eyes. Why are you here? Because, he said, stepping closer, you insist on chasing a boy whose actions bore me, when you should be worried about the man standing in front of you. She exhaled, annoyed at how easily he got under her skin. I'm not worried. No, he murmured. You're intrigued. Heat rose to her chest. Anger, embarrassment, attraction tangled too tightly to separate. I'm here to arrest your son, she said, not to play whatever psychological game you think this is. You cannot arrest him, Hwarin said, not a threat. A fact? I can. You cannot, he repeated gently, almost indulgently, because his crimes are not his own. Leona blinked. Whose then? He stepped so close she felt the warmth of him even in the winter air. Mine. The word hit like a physical sensation. What are you talking about? She breathed. Daehyun is a fool, the dragon said, but he is also my cover, the noise that hides my movements, the shadow cast on the wall so no one sees the hand that placed it. Leona stared, stunned. He was confessing, not openly, but enough to change everything. Why tell me this? His eyes softened dangerously. Because, he said quietly, you will keep coming for the truth, and if you pursue the sun, you will never find the real monster. Her chest tightened. Are you saying that's you? A small, unreadable smile. You already know the answer. Her breath trembled, but she held his gaze. Then I should be arresting you. You should, he agreed. But you won't? And why is that? His voice dropped to a deep, warm timbre that wrapped around her like velvet. Because, he said, every time you face me, your heartbeat gives you away. Her lips parted. Shock, frustration, and something warm spiraling dangerously close to desire. She hated that he could read her so easily. You don't know anything about me. I know enough, he murmured. Enough to understand why you stay. She stepped back instinctively, needing space, needing distance, needing air. This is inappropriate, she snapped. Hwarin tilted his head. And yet, you're still standing here. Leona's hands curled into fists. This man, this impossible, infuriating man. How could he be so calmly certain? He took one final step toward her, not touching, but close enough for the space between them to vibrate with unspoken tension. My son's mistakes, the dragon said softly, are irritating. But you... A pause that made her breath stop. You are interesting. Leona felt heat climb her neck before she could block it. I don't want to be interesting to you. I know, he said, eyes darkening. That is exactly why you are. The streetlight above flickered again, humming faintly like it sensed the tension between them. Leona forced herself to breathe, to stand straighter, To remember her badge meant something, meant she couldn't be pulled into whatever gravitational field this man seemed to create around himself. "I'm not here to entertain you," she said finally, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm here to do my job." "And yet here we are," the dragon murmured. "You surrounded by shadows and me choosing to meet you alone when I could send a battalion." Leona shook her head. "What do you want from me?" He considered her carefully, like a scent he was still learning, like a concept he hadn't decided how to classify yet. But his answer was measured, controlled. "For now," he said, "I want you to stop chasing the wrong culprit. My son is reckless, but he is not the architect of anything worth your time." "Then I'll chase you," she said. A slow smile touched his mouth, dangerously subtle, dangerously intrigued. "You could," he said, "but you would lose." "I don't lose. Everyone loses," he said gently. "Even me, even you." Leona hated that he spoke those words not like a threat, not like a taunt, but like a truth carved from decades of surviving this city's darkest corners. Before she could respond, the club's back door opened. Two men stepped out smoking and laughing, oblivious to the quiet clash happening just meters away. Hua-Rin's eyes flicked toward them, then back to her. "Walk with me," he said. "No. Walk," he repeated softly, "or those men will assume you're tailing them, and they will react poorly. I prefer to spare you unnecessary bruises tonight." Leona clenched her jaw and followed him into the deeper part of the alley, away from prying eyes. He didn't touch her. It was striking how easily he could have, how much control he seemed to have over every inch of space, but he maintained exactly the distance required to keep her from feeling cornered. Respectful, calculating, impossible to predict. When they reached a quiet spot between buildings, he turned to her again. "You're young to be so relentless," he said, "only 23. "How do you know that?" His expression was almost amused. "I know your age, your birthplace, your mother's name, your arrival date in Korea, and the coffee shop where you hide for 2 hours every Wednesday to escape your coworkers." Leona's stomach dropped. "You've been watching me?" "Not personally," he said. "Yet." She crossed her arms tightly. "You're crossing lines." "Detective Hayes," he said calmly, "you crossed a line the moment you followed my son. I'm simply acknowledging the new terrain." Leona opened her mouth to snap at him, to tell him she wasn't intimidated, to tell him she wouldn't be toyed with. But a sharp shout echoed from the street behind them. The dragon's expression shifted instantly. He listened. A second shout, then a crash. "Stay behind me," Hua-Rin ordered. Leona ignored him and moved past him, peeking around the corner. 4 men had Dae-hyun pinned against a wall, fists raised, shouting accusations she couldn't fully hear. "That's your son," she hissed. "Yes," Hua-Rin said, "and he earned whatever beating this is." She glared at him. "You're really going to let him get jumped?" For the moment, one of the attackers reached for a knife. Leona didn't wait. She sprinted forward, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting sharply. The knife clattered to the ground. The other 3 men turned on her instantly. A fist swung. She ducked. Another strike from behind. She blocked with her forearm. Someone grabbed her coat. She slammed her elbow backward into his ribs. She moved fast, clean, precise. Dae-hyun stumbled away, clutching his jaw. "What the hell? Who even are you?" he shouted at her. He didn't get an answer. One of the men came at her again, but this time, he didn't reach her. A hand clamped down on the attacker's shoulder like an iron trap. A familiar voice spoke, low and deadly. "That's enough." The dragon. The attacker froze. Everyone froze. Moon Hua-Rin stepped into the fray like a knife sliding into soft fabric. Quiet, smooth, unstoppable. He didn't raise his voice, didn't posture, didn't threaten. He simply existed. And fear radiated outward like heat. All 4 men backed away without hesitation. Dae-hyun swallowed hard, suddenly sober. "Appa." Hua-Rin didn't look at him. He only kept his eyes on the men who'd attacked. "Leave." The men didn't argue, they ran. Leona watched them flee, chest heaving from the adrenaline rush, her hands still curled in ready fists. Only when the alley was silent again did the dragon turn toward her. "You intervene too quickly," he said, "and you don't intervene quickly enough." He held her gaze with an unreadable expression. "Then we balance each other." Her heartbeat jolted, firm, unwanted, undeniable. Dae-hyun coughed, still dazed. Appa, why are you with a cop? Leona glared at him. You're welcome for saving your life. I didn't need saving, he muttered. You were about 10 seconds from bleeding, she shot back. Hwarin finally turned to his son. His voice dropped, cold enough to frost stone. You embarrass yourself. Dae-hyun stiffened as though struck. Appa. Go home, the dragon said, before she arrests you for breathing incorrectly. Dae-hyun blinked, looked at Leona, looked at his father, then hurried off, already pulling out his phone to call a car. When he was gone, Leona exhaled the tension she'd been holding. This, she said, pointing at where the fight had been, is exactly what I'm trying to prevent. And I, the dragon replied, am preventing you from being dragged into matters that have nothing to do with justice. So you admit your son's involved. My son, he said evenly, is an accessory to his own stupidity, not to my operations. Leona stepped closer without realizing it. And you think you can just stand there and decide which crimes matter? I decide everything, he said softly, including the fact that you are too bold for your age, too stubborn for your own good, and too captivating for me to ignore. She froze. Don't. He lifted one gloved hand, not touching, just existing in the space near her cheek, the warmth of it too real. I could ask you to stop pursuing this, he murmured, but you wouldn't. No, she breathed. I wouldn't. His eyes softened, an expression she had no defense against. Good, he said. I prefer the version of you that refuses me. Leona's breath caught, her pulse beating uncontrollably. He stepped back, giving her space she didn't even realize she needed. We are not done, Detective Hayes, he said, and I suspect neither of us wants to be. Leona didn't immediately walk away, though she should have. Every protocol she'd ever learned, every instinct drilled into her during training screamed at her to put distance between herself and the man who dominated half the criminal underworld. But something rooted her in place. Maybe it was the adrenaline still buzzing through her chest. Maybe it was the strange calm in his voice. Maybe it was the warmth of that almost touch. A whisper of heat against her skin that hadn't even happened yet still made her breath tremble. The dragon watched her with steady, unblinking focus. The heavy soul night wrapped around them, sheltering the moment with the silent permission of the city itself. You fight well, he said finally. It's my job. No, he corrected softly. Your job is paperwork, regulations, supervision from men who think you're too young to lead. What I saw was instinct, precision, fire. She crossed her arms to steady herself. Compliments from you don't mean anything. On the contrary, he murmured. Most men would kill for a compliment from me. Well, I'm not most men. I'm aware. His gaze warmed, slowly, deliberately, in a way that felt like he was reading the space just around her, not yet daring to touch it. Leona stepped back, needing air, needing logic. I saved your son, she reminded him. He could have been hurt. He could have been smarter, the dragon countered. But he was lucky it was you. She frowned. Why me? His eyes held hers with unnerving clarity. Because you do not tolerate injustice, no matter who commits it. Criminal, victim, cop, civilian. You act because it is right, not because it is allowed. Leona swallowed hard. Is that supposed to be praise or manipulation? Both, he admitted. The honesty disarmed her more than anything else he'd said. And what about you? She asked. Where do you fall on that line between right and allowed? His expression shifted, something deeper, older, tired around the edges. Everything I do, he said quietly, falls under necessary. For the first time, Leona saw something beyond the intimidating exterior. Something human, something worn, something shaped by decades of choices that were never simple. But she couldn't let that soften her. Necessary doesn't make it. Legal? No, he agreed. It makes it effective. She exhaled sharply. You can justify anything with the right vocabulary. He huffed a breath. Not a laugh, but close. Perhaps, but you, Detective Hayes, are not easily fooled. If I wanted to manipulate you, I would choose a softer approach. Oh yeah? She shot back. What's that supposed to mean? That I know better than to insult your intelligence? Leona's lips twitched, almost a smile. She crushed it down. I'm not working for you, she said. I never suggested you should. I'm not protecting your son. No one can protect him from himself. And I'm not scared of you. His gaze lowered slightly, not predatory, not cruel, but observant, like he was memorizing the way her jaw tensed, or how her breath shifted when he looked too closely. You should be, he murmured, but I won't insist on it. Her pulse betrayed her again, quickening. He heard it. She knew he did. The dragon stepped forward just enough that she felt the edge of his presence brushing against her skin like a slow-moving current. You saved my son, he said. That earns you a certain courtesy. I don't want courtesy from a mafia boss. Then take it from a man. She froze. The alley suddenly felt too quiet, the world too small, his words too close. She managed a whisper. You don't know me? Not yet, he said, but I find myself wanting to. She backed up until her shoulder brushed the cold brick wall. Stop! He stopped immediately. He didn't push. He didn't invade. He simply waited. It was that restraint, that choice, that unraveled her more than any threat could have. She forced her breath to steady. This doesn't make sense. You're dangerous. Your world is dangerous. His reply was soft, a confession wrapped in iron certainty. And yet here you stand, not calling for backup, not running, not even looking away. She hated how true it was. She hated it more that he looked almost relieved. What do you want from me? She asked again, quieter this time. Understanding, he said. Perhaps conversation, perhaps something even I haven't decided yet. Leona shook her head. You're too old for me. He arched a brow. 50 is not ancient, and 23 is not an accessory for a man like you. Something glimmered in his eyes, something like dark humor, mixed with genuine admiration. Detective Hayes, he murmured, I assure you, nothing about you would ever be an accessory. Her breath hitched. Damn her. He noticed. Damn him. He took only one step forward, only one. But that was enough to make the city feel like it stilled around them. May I offer you a ride home? He asked, voice gentler than she expected. Soul at this hour is not forgiving. No. Because you don't trust me? Because I'm not supposed to. He nodded, accepting it without argument. Very well. He reached into his coat and extended a small card. Not a business card, just a number, written in clean black ink. If you find yourself cornered, he said, call. I do not allow harm to come to those who interest me. She stared at the card, didn't take it, didn't reject it either. The dragon held it patiently. After several seconds of suffocating tension, she snatched it from his fingers if only to end the moment. His lips curved, just slightly. Good night, Detective Hayes. She could have sworn her name in his voice sounded like something he didn't want to put down, and then, with the same silent grace he'd appeared with, he turned, walked down the alley, and dissolved into Seoul's neon-soaked night. Leona stood there long after he was gone, breath uneven, heart unruly, the card burning in her pocket like a secret she was afraid to examine. She had crossed a line, and she wasn't sure she wanted to go back. Leona barely slept again. She lay awake replaying everything, the fight, the tension, the way his voice had curled around her name like it wanted to hold it. The card burned inside her coat pocket, feeling heavier than any weapon she'd ever carried. Why had she taken it? Why hadn't she thrown it at his feet? Why did part of her, just a tiny, unreasonable part, keep hearing his voice saying, if you find yourself cornered, call? By the time morning sunlight seeped into her apartment, she felt strung tight as piano wire. She showered, dressed, grabbed her badge, and tried to force her brain back into detective mode. No distractions, no criminals in silk coats, no mafia boss with a gaze like he could read the pulse beneath her skin. She had a job to do. When she arrived at the precinct, Sergeant Kang was already pacing. There you are, he said, waving her over. Something came in overnight. Leona instantly stiffened. What happened? A lead on the trafficking ring, Kang said. Anonymous drop, detailed, too detailed. Her stomach twisted. Anonymous, she echoed low. Kang nodded, anxiety etched in every line of his face. Leona, I think it's from him. Of course it was. It couldn't be coincidence, not after last night, not after everything he'd said. She swallowed. What kind of lead? Kang slid a folder across the desk. Photos, map coordinates, financial transfers, the kind of evidence that took months, years, to compile, and someone had just dumped it at their doorstep. This is enough to crack the case open, Kang said, but it's also too clean, too perfect. Leona could hear the warning beneath his words. Someone is steering you. Someone is watching. Her chest tightened. She knew exactly who. The dragon hadn't just brushed against her life. He was now reshaping the edges of her investigation. Kang looked at her with a seriousness she rarely saw. Hayes, be honest. Did you make contact with him again last night? She hesitated a fraction too long. Kang exhaled like he'd expected it. You need to tread carefully. If he's feeding information, it's not kindness. Men like that don't help for free. Then I'll figure out what he wants, she said. Kang grabbed her arm, not rough, just urgent. Leona, don't play with fire. I don't want to lose you. She softened. Kang was gruff, blunt, infuriating sometimes, but he cared. And he was right. I know, she said quietly. I'll be careful. Careful. Except her heart didn't know the meaning of the word anymore. Leona took the evidence to an empty briefing room and spread everything across a long table. As she examined it piece by piece, she noticed something unsettling. Every lead pointed away from Daehyun. Every clue pointed toward a rival group. Every trail neatly, deliberately cleared the dragon's family. It wasn't falsified, it was too accurate, too sourced from real surveillance. But the direction of it? This wasn't truth. It was orchestration. A quiet buzz in her pocket snapped her out of her thoughts. Her phone lit with a number she didn't recognize, but she knew. She knew anyway. Leona answered on speaker, not speaking. A familiar low voice filled the room. Detective Hayes. Her breath caught. She turned off speaker immediately. How did you get this number? I gave you mine. It was only fair. That's not how anything works, she snapped. It's how I work. Leona grit her teeth. What do you want? A conversation. I'm busy. I'm aware. You're reviewing the file I sent. Her blood chilled. You're tracking me? Not at this moment, he said. But I am a logical man. I know the pattern of your diligence. She wanted to slam the phone down, hang up, scream at him, but she didn't. Why are you interfering with the investigation, she demanded. I am accelerating it, he corrected. Removing obstacles, refining your focus. Refining it toward what you want, she shot back. Not toward the truth. A pause. Detective Hayes, he said softly. Truth and survival are not always aligned. That's not your call. No, he said. It is yours. And I trust you to use what I've given wisely. Is that supposed to flatter me? She asked bitterly. No, he murmured. It's meant to warn you. Her chest tightened. Warn me about what? About who you will face next. A slow inhale. The men behind this ring are not frightened amateurs. They are not impulsive like my son. They are patient, violent, and they have noticed your interest. Leona felt her pulse quicken. You're lying, she said. Too quickly, too defensively. I don't lie, he answered. I manipulate when necessary. But I do not lie to people I value. Her throat tightened. You don't value me. Another silence, this one heavy. I have spent many years valuing nothing, he said. And yet here you stand, proving that even men like me can be disrupted. Her pulse stumbled. Don't say things like that, she whispered. Why? He asked quietly. Do they unsettle you? She hated how her breath answered for her. Hua Rin, she said, using his name for the first time without thinking. This can't happen. You know it can't. You and I are on opposite sides of everything. Opposites attract, he said simply. This isn't attraction, she lied. No, he said softly. It is something far more inconvenient. Leona pressed a shaking hand to her forehead. Stop. Just tell me why you're involving yourself at all. Because my son is a fool, he said. Because his alliances threaten my stability. Because you saw him and you didn't flinch. Because you stand in the middle of danger with a stubbornness I cannot ignore. His voice dropped lower, warmer. And because, Detective Hayes, when you look at me, I see a woman who is not afraid of the truth, even if the truth is staring her in the face. Leona closed her eyes, breath trembling. This can't work, she whispered. I am not asking for it to work, he said. I am asking for it to begin. Her heart betrayed her again. Loud, insistent, wanting. You're dangerous, she said. Yes. You're older. Yes. You're everything I should avoid. Yes. And you still think I'd let myself get close to you? The dragon's answer was quiet, sure, unshakably certain. I think, he said, you already have. She exhaled shakily. I hate that you're right. No, he murmured. You hate that you want me to be. Her breath broke. She didn't speak. She couldn't. After a long, fragile moment, his voice softened. I will not force your hand. The choice is yours, but understand this. A gentle pause. Whatever storm is coming for you, I will face it first. And then he ended the call. Leona stared at the dead phone, heart trembling. She wanted to laugh, cry, throw something, run, stay. Because for the first time in her life, danger didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a promise. And somewhere deep in Soul's tangled night, the dragon was already moving, quiet, deadly, protective, toward a war that would pull her into its center, whether she liked it or not.